On September 9th, 2022, at the D23 Studio Showcase, Pixar officially announced that production had begun on a sequel to the 2015 hit Inside Out. Now, for some context, at the time, Pixar was stuck in a bit of a pickle. They had just come out of an era where COVID forced them to release 3 brand new movies, all on Disney+. Now, even though these movies were met with relative success from critics, along with pretty good streaming numbers, something still felt off. These movies were good, but they didn't feel like the magical films Pixar had been churning out recently. To understand that, we have to go back even further. When COVID hit, Pixar had just released a $1 billion movie in 2019, a $1 billion movie in 2018, the highest grossing movie ever in the country of Mexico at the time in 2017. And heck, even the movie they released a week before COVID hit managed to make over $100 million before all theaters across the nation shut down. Times were good for Pixar. And even though those 3 films they released on Disney Plus definitely put a dent in their bank account, in the summer of 2022, they finally got to put a movie back in theaters. And on top of that, they got to use one of their most popular characters, Buzz Lightyear. The film was predicted by many to gross about $300 million in the US and over $600 million worldwide. Nothing special for Pixar, but a nice return to form for the greatest animation company in the world. And then the movie came out. Lightyear flopped massively at the box office, with Pixar losing over $100 million. And then came last summer's Elemental, which actually surprisingly turned a slight profit due to the film being huge overseas. But here in America, it only made about $150 million, putting it towards the bottom of Pixar's filmography in that regard. It also joined Lightyear in being fairly lackluster in the eyes of the critics, as those 2 films have the lowest Rotten Tomatoes ratings out of any Pixar movies not a part of the Cars franchise. So where does that put us now? Well, Inside Out 2 is not a risk for Pixar. In my eyes, Inside Out was one of the last brilliant, creative, and original ideas Pixar has had in recent years. So the question we must ask when it comes to judging this film is not how well it does at the box office, because it will do well. It's, has Pixar lost its touch? Has it lost its ability to make films that everyone in the family can relate to? Soul was nothing to kids. I imagine it inspired a ton of adults, and personally, I love it. But let's be real, no kid wants a Joe Gardner toy. Luca, on the other hand, was good for kids, but even though the theme of overparenting is there for adults, it's shown in a way to where they're trying to reach a very specific audience. And speaking of specific audiences, Turning Red, which I personally consider to be the worst film Pixar has ever released, is targeted towards an extremely specific audience. The film touches on, and I quote, the bittersweet experiences Asian Americans face in their adolescence. Now, that's all well and good for a film, but it narrows its audience even more by focusing immensely on teen girls hitting puberty and all of the emotions that come along with it. Really? I mean, honestly, who is that meant for? Can the entire family really turn that on and enjoy it? What happens if you don't have a teenage girl in your family? What is there to learn for the average viewer? In my eyes, that's been the biggest problem recently with Pixar. It's lost its connection to the viewer. It has its emotional moments, but kids aren't captivated by it. Have you noticed that kids aren't rewatching a movie like Soul every day, sleeping under a Luca bedspread, blowing out the candles on their Elemental birthday cake, or playing with their Turning Red toys? Pixar has lost its grip on the average child that it once held so firmly. But Inside Out 2 could be the turning point. Kids who watched the first film are now older teens, and the story realizes that. It echoes how Toy Story made sure to correlate Andy's age to the viewer's age with each movie. Pixar still has that creativity to take its stories in the direction they need to go. It seems they're taking an approach with an emphasis on mental health, making the headliner of the new emotions anxiety. It's bold, but it's relevant. In conclusion, I really don't know what the future holds for Pixar. The two films slated to release after Inside Out 2 are Elio and Toy Story 5, both of which are huge risks and could blow up in Pixar's face. But they could also be amazing. It just depends on the creativity behind it. Early reviews are saying that Inside Out 2 is a return to form for Pixar. So there's no doubt in my mind, this movie has the ability to be the biggest and most important Pixar film in years. But the overarching question of it all is, will it? Thanks for watching. God bless.